But there was one performance this year that stunned me. It sank its hooks in my heart, not because it was good.
In an emotional moment at the Golden Globes, Meryl Streep stunned the world when she boldly criticized Donald Trump, turning the stage into a platform to expose his baseness. It was that moment when the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country imitated a disabled reporter. "It kind of broke my heart," Streep said, her voice filled with outrage at Trump's despicable behavior during the campaign. She did not hesitate to call it a despicable act, an affront to human dignity, and a dangerous precedent. Disrespect invites disrespect. Violence incites violence. Although she did not directly mention Melania Trump, Streep's message was a strong challenge to anyone who tolerates or stays silent in the face of Trump's vulgarity, a man she believes does not deserve the power he holds. Streep's speech was not only a personal condemnation but also a direct attack on Trump's toxic nature, sparking fierce debate about the moral decay in politics that he represents.
It was that moment when the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country imitated a disabled reporter, someone he outranked in privilege, power, and the capacity to fight back. It kind of broke my heart when I saw it, and I still can't get it out of my head because it wasn't in a movie. It was real life.
Trump's impersonation of a disabled reporter not only left a wound in Meryl Streep's heart, but also sparked a fierce anger. She described the moment as a stab to the heart. "It kind of broke my heart when I saw it, and I still can't get it out of my head because it wasn't in a movie. It was real life." For Streep, what disgusted her was not just the despicable nature of the act, but the fact that it came from someone who was running for president of a country. Trump's lowness, she said, was not just an insult to the reporter but also a blow to basic human values. Her anger was not just personal but also represented the frustration of millions of people who saw Trump not as a leader, but as a shameless bully. From personal outrage, Streep elevated her speech into a blistering argument, exposing Trump's toxic nature and the dangerous consequences he has wrought on society. She asserted that when someone like Trump, someone in a position of power, publicly displays bullying, it ripples throughout society. This instinct to humiliate, when it's modeled by someone in the public platform, by someone powerful, it filters down into everybody's life because it kind of permits for other people to do the same thing. Streep went beyond criticizing specific actions to denouncing Trump as the source of a moral spiral where disrespect and violence are encouraged by his vulgarity. To her, Trump is not just a despicable individual but a genuine threat to civilized societal values.
We need the principled press to hold power to account, to call them on the carpet for every outrage.
Streep's speech was delivered in a tense political context, when Trump had just been elected and his leadership style was exposing his chaotic, autocratic nature. Although she did not directly name him, Streep's reference to him as the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country was a sharp attack, implicitly criticizing that Trump did not deserve that position. At that time, American society was deeply divided, and groups like Hollywood, foreigners, and the press that Streep mentioned were constantly attacked by Trump and his supporters. In that context, Streep not only condemned Trump's behavior but also denounced him as the one behind the division and hatred, a leader who was not qualified to represent a civilized country. To her, Trump was the embodiment of decadence, and speaking out was her way to directly confront that unworthiness. Streep's choice of the Golden Globe stage to speak out was a direct attack, using a global platform to expose Trump's vileness in front of millions of viewers. This was not just an artistic event, but also a political battlefield, where Streep did not hesitate to deliver a powerful blow to Trump's image. By standing on a stage that was broadcast live around the world, Streep turned her words into a declaration of war, not just on Trump but on anyone who tolerated his vulgarity. While she did not mention Melania Trump, her message was a clear challenge. No one should be silent in the face of the moral depravity that Trump represents, from those closest to him to the general public. Streep's speech immediately created a strong reaction, becoming a direct attack on Trump and what he represents. For many, it was a historic moment, an artist standing up to expose the lowlifes of a powerful man, unafraid of the consequences. However, it did not go unanswered by Trump supporters, who felt Streep had gone too far by turning an artistic event into a political attack. Still, There was no denying that her speech had opened a war of words, exposing Trump as an unfit leader whose vulgarity had tarnished the image of a country that once prided itself on its moral values.
And there were many, many, many powerful performances this year that did exactly that. Breathtaking, compassionate work.
Meryl Streep's attack on Trump at the Golden Globes was not just a reaction to his insignificance, but also rooted in her deep-seated professional mission as an actress. Streep has always believed that art is a tool for cultivating empathy and defending human values, values that Trump has repeatedly trampled on. His vulgarity not only hurts the vulnerable, but is also in direct opposition to the ideals that Streep has spent her career defending, making it impossible for her to remain silent in the face of someone she sees as a threat to human dignity. For Streep, acting is not just about performing, but about understanding and feeling the lives of others. She once asserted, "An actor's only job is to enter the lives of people who are different from us and let you feel what that feels like." This view makes art a powerful tool to fight insensitivity, which Trump represents through his behavior. When someone like Trump uses his power to ridicule others, he not only shows a lack of empathy but also destroys the values that art seeks to build. For Streep, standing up to Trump's insensitivity is an integral part of the artistic mission she has pursued all her life.
And this instinct to humiliate, when it's modeled by someone in the public platform, by someone powerful, it filters down into everybody's life because it kind of gives permission for other people to do the same thing. Disrespect invites disrespect. Violence incites violence.
It was Streep's artistic ideals that made her intolerant of Trump's vulgarity. When she saw a powerful man using his position to humiliate others, Streep realized that he was not only personally insulting, but also insulting the ideals she held dear: empathy and human dignity. Trump, with his inhumane actions, became a symbol of the depravity that Streep felt compelled to fight. Her actions were not just a personal reaction, but also an attempt to defend her artistic ideals against the attacks of a man she saw as morally unfit to lead. Trump's vulgarity was not just a personal problem, but a direct threat to the values Streep had spent her career defending. For her, remaining silent in the face of Trump's depravity would be a betrayal of her mission as an actress, a mission that goes beyond portraying characters to using her voice to defend human dignity. Streep cannot stand by as Trump uses power to crush the kindness and compassion she has devoted her life to cultivating through art. Speaking out against him is her way of asserting that an actor must not only tell a story, but also stand up against moral depravity. Streep's view of the role of the artist sets a higher bar. Art must not only reflect society but also be a weapon to defeat the toxicity that Trump represents. She believes that artists have a responsibility to use their platforms to fight against people like Trump, people who use their power to sow hatred and division. In this case, Streep speaks not only as an individual but also as a representative of the arts, one who understands that silence on Trump is a betrayal of the values that art represents. Her attack on Trump is therefore not just a criticism but also a declaration of war, affirming that art will never bow to his toxicity.
I am the most overrated and most over-decorated and currently I am the most over-berated actress who likes football of my generation.
Meryl Streep not only spoke out to expose Donald Trump's incompetence, but also showed a rare courage to directly confront a dangerous, powerful man, despite the consequences she knew would come. Trump, with his authoritarian nature and habit of retaliation, is not an easy opponent. But Streep did not hesitate to put herself in his crosshairs, turning her actions into a powerful attack against the toxicity he represents. Her courage was not only a personal act, but also a declaration of war against someone she saw as a real threat to justice and human dignity. Streep understood that publicly criticizing Trump was a risky move, especially when facing a man known for his revenge and habit of oppressing his opponents. She frankly admitted, "It's terrifying to put the target on your forehead, and it sets you up for all sorts of attacks." With a man like Trump, who is willing to use his power to lash and intimidate, punish and humiliate, as Streep once described it, her actions could invite a barrage of attacks. From armies of brown shirts and bots to waves of social media smears, Streep knows that confronting Trump is not just challenging an individual, but confronting the hostile system he represents. But it is precisely this awareness of the danger that makes her brave, a bravery that is not blind but built on full awareness of the costs of confronting a man as evil as Trump.
And the only way you can do it is to feel you have to. You have to. You don't have an option. You have to. Stand up, speak up, act up.
Despite her awareness of the dangers posed by Trump, Streep chose not to tolerate his tyranny. She asserted that in such situations, the only way you can do it is to feel you have to. You have to. You don't have an option. You have to stand up, speak up, act up. For Streep, staying silent in the face of Trump is not an option. It means accepting his toxicity and allowing his misdeeds to continue to spread unchecked. Trump, with his habit of using his power to suppress the truth and suppress his opponents, is a threat that cannot be ignored. Streep's choice to confront him head-on is not just an act of resistance, but also a statement that Trump's tyranny cannot and must not prevail. She is not only speaking up for justice, but also sending a message that no one, not even someone as powerful as Trump, can stand above morality and human dignity.
I am the most overrated and most over-decorated.
Streep's courage lies not only in her actions, but also in the personal significance of her fight against Trump. She calls herself the most overrated and most overberated actress, a modest and self-aware way of saying that she stands up to the attacks she knows Trump and his supporters are likely to unleash. But for Streep, taking on Trump is not about asserting herself, but about defending the core values she holds dear: fairness, decency, and individual responsibility in society. Challenging someone like Trump, whom she sees as the embodiment of moral decadence, is Streep's way of holding fast to her beliefs despite the storms of criticism she knows will come. Her actions demonstrate that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the willingness to stand up to someone as dangerous as Trump to stand up for what is right. Streep's courageous stand against Trump is not only a personal story, but also a powerful inspiration for others to stand up to his toxicity. When someone like Streep, an artist with global influence, dares to put herself in Trump's crosshairs, it sends a clear message that no one should bow to his oppression. Her actions encourage others to break their silence, to refuse to accept Trump's tyranny as inevitable. In a time when many feel threatened by his power, Streep's courage becomes a beacon, a reminder that a voice that dares to challenge Trump, even in the face of danger, can inspire greater resistance to the evil he represents.
The whip of the executive can, through a Twitter feed, lash and intimidate, punish and humiliate, delegitimize the press and all the imagined enemies with spasmodic regularity and easily provoked predictability.
Meryl Streep went beyond exposing Donald Trump's vileness to turning her Golden Globe speech into a powerful plea for freedom of the press, a vital tool in the fight against his tyranny and repression. To her, Trump is not just a crook but a direct threat to democracy, with a habit of using power to stifle the truth and intimidate those who dare to confront him. Streep understands that in an era where Trump seeks to control and undermine the press, defending free speech is the only way to prevent the destruction he could wreak on democratic values. In her Golden Globe speech, Streep emphasized the importance of freedom of the press as a bulwark against Trump's tyranny. We need the principled press to hold power to account, to call them on the carpet for every outrage. For her, the press is not only a right, but also a powerful weapon against a man like Trump, a man who is willing to use his power to lash and intimidate, punish and humiliate anyone who dares to challenge him. Streep realizes that without a free press, Trump's wrongdoings will go unexposed, and his cruelty will go unchecked. Her call is not just a reminder, but also a declaration of war, affirming that the press must be the vanguard in the fight against Trump's oppression. Streep does not hesitate to criticize Trump as a direct threat to truth and democracy. With his habit of using power to stifle the press and control information, she warns that in the hands of a man like Trump, power can become a tool to delegitimize the press and make truth the first victim of authoritarianism. Trump, with his attacks on the press and his actions to undermine public trust in the media, has shown himself to be not just a crass but a real threat to the foundations of a democratic society. Streep understands that if Trump is allowed to continue to control and manipulate the truth, the democratic values she and many others hold dear will be destroyed by his toxicity. Aware of the threat posed by Trump, Streep went beyond warnings to issue a specific call to action to counter his repression. She urged the Hollywood community and the public to support the Committee to Protect Journalists. I only ask the famously well-heeled Hollywood foreign press and all of us in our community to join me in supporting the Committee to Protect Journalists, because we're going to need them going forward, and they'll need us to safeguard the truth. For Streep, this was not just a call to protect the press, but also a long-term strategy to counter Trump, a man she believes will relentlessly suppress the truth to protect his power. She understands that only a strong and free press can stand up to Trump's attacks and prevent him from using his power as a tool to manipulate society. Moreover, Streep emphasized that freedom of the press is one of the last lines of defense for democracy against Trump's destruction. She reminded us that our founders enshrined the press and its freedoms in our Constitution because they understood that the press is an essential tool to keep power in check. In the context of Trump's continuous efforts to undermine the press, from calling them enemies of the people to threatening journalists who dare to criticize him, Streep realized that if this line of defense collapsed, there would be nothing left to stop his tyranny. For her, protecting the freedom of the press is not only protecting the truth, but also protecting the democracy that Trump is trying to destroy with his toxicity and power. Streep's call is therefore not only a warning but also a call to arms, urging everyone to stand up against Trump's oppression before it is too late.
Well, I think the assault on the press and freedom of the press and the attempt to, by government to shut down a story is something that's risen over and over again since, Brave New World.
Meryl Streep's anti-Trump message resonated not only through her words, but also found deep sympathy in the arts, especially through the film The Post, a work that reflects the urgency of fighting against the tyranny and oppression of people like Trump. The film, produced at an unprecedented speed, is not only a historical story but also a direct warning about the danger that Trump poses to freedom and truth. Through The Post, the arts industry has stood up with Streep to denounce the danger of Trump, turning artistic values into weapons against the destruction he can cause to democracy. The film The Post, about the Washington Post's decision to publish the Pentagon Papers despite pressure from the Nixon administration, carries a clear message: authoritarian power always seeks to stifle the truth, and Trump is the modern-day embodiment of that threat. The assault on the press and freedom of the press is something that's risen over and over again, one industry insider observed. For Streep and the filmmakers, Trump is no different from Nixon, a man willing to use his power to suppress the press and conceal the truth to protect his interests. The Post is not only a historical work but also a direct warning about Trump's toxicity, affirming that without strong resistance, he will continue to destroy the values that are the foundation of a free society. The urgency of the anti-Trump push is evident in the speed of production of The Post, a project that director Steven Spielberg rushed to get to the public as soon as possible. As one character shares, Steven Spielberg felt the impetus to get this out right away. "We started shooting in May and finished at the end of July," he had a cut 2 weeks later. This speed is not only an artistic feat but also a declaration of war against the dangers of Trump. Spielberg and his team understand that in an era when Trump is constantly attacking the press and threatening free speech, delaying could mean letting his authoritarianism take over. The Post is thus not just a film but also an artistic act against Trump, intended to amplify Streep's message and warn the public before it is too late. Through The Post, the arts have come to see Trump as an enemy not only of journalism but also of truth and freedom, values that art has always sought to protect. The film not only tells a historical story but also reflects the disturbing reality of the Trump era, a leader willing to do anything to control information and suppress those who dare to confront him. For Streep and the arts, Trump is not only a political threat but also an enemy of civilized values, a man whose authoritarianism could lead to the collapse of the foundations on which free society depends. The Post thus becomes a tool for the arts to continue to attack Trump, turning the historical story into a direct denunciation of his danger in modern times. The art industry's sympathy for Streep's message through The Post is not only an act of reflection but also a call to arms, turning art into a front to defeat Trump's destruction. The film not only celebrates journalists who dare to stand up to authoritarian power but also serves as a reminder that art has the power to fight back against people like Trump, those who seek to destroy truth and freedom for personal gain. Streep and the artists who make and quickly release The Post stand with her, using the power of art to denounce Trump and prevent him from turning power into a tool of manipulation and oppression. Art, in this way, not only reflects reality but also becomes a powerful weapon to confront Trump's cruelty. Trump, with his desire for control, has been exposed to the light of truth that Streep represents, a light that no amount of lies or suppression can extinguish. Streep's actions are not just a denunciation but a warning that people like Trump, no matter how powerful, will never prevail against the power of justice, morality, and the courage of those who dare to stand up to them.